On the night when the bells of Saint Augustine's Church rang without a single hand touching them, no prayers were answered, only fear was awakened behind stone walls that had absorbed centuries of sin. Something that should have remained buried began to breathe again. The residents believed they lived in the house of God, until a nun-shaped shadow stood in the dark corridors, smiling, and proved that faith was not protection, but an invitation. The Church of Saint Augustine stood at the edge of the village like a forgotten memory, towering and endlessly silent. Its stone walls were darkened by age and rain, carved with fading religious symbols that no longer inspired comfort, only unease. During the day, the building appeared peaceful, almost holy. But when the sun sank below the forest line and darkness swallowed the land, the church became something else entirely. No one in the village dared to enter after sunset. Inside, the air was unnaturally cold. Even during summer, candles flickered, though there was no wind, and the long wooden pews creaked softly as if someone unseen were shifting their weight upon them. The church was not abandoned. It was still inhabited by a small group of clergy, 3 nuns, 2 priests, and an elderly caretaker, each bound by duty, faith, or nowhere else to go. Sister Maria was the first to notice something was wrong. That evening, as she walked down the central aisle to extinguish the candles after prayer, she felt a sudden chill crawl up her spine. Her breath turned visible in the air. She stopped walking. The church was completely quiet, yet she felt watched. "Hello," she whispered, her voice echoing too loudly. No answer came. Only the faint sound of something scratching beneath the floorboards. She hurried back to the living quarters, telling herself it was rats or old wood settling. But deep inside, her heart knew better. Father Thomas the senior priest dismissed the early signs of superstition. The church was old, he said. Sounds and shadows were expected. Faith, he reminded them, was strongest when fear tried to enter. Still, even he could not ignore what followed. The bells rang by themselves at exactly 3:07 a.m. The sound tore through the night like a scream. Sister Agnes woke up crying, convinced she heard a woman chanting in a language she did not understand. Father Luke ran to the bell tower, only to find the ropes completely still, coated in a thin layer of frost. There were no footprints, no explanation. Each night after that, the silence grew heavier. Shadows lingered longer than they should. Hallways seemed to stretch endlessly, and doors were often found open, though no one remembered unlocking them. The crucifix above the altar tilted slightly to the left, no matter how many times it was straightened. The caretaker, Mr. Elias, had lived in the church for over 40 years. He had seen storms, theft attempts, even fires, but never fear like this. One night, while cleaning near the altar, he noticed dark stains spreading slowly across the marble floor. He knelt to wipe them away. Te warm. Elias stood up, trembling, and crossed himself repeatedly. "This place is no longer empty," he whispered. The nuns began experiencing the same dream. A long corridor, dimly lit by candles, and at the end a tall figure dressed as a nun, her face hidden in darkness. Whenever they tried to pray, their voices failed them. Whenever they tried to scream, the figures stepped closer, always smiling. On the 7th night, the power went out completely. No candles would stay lit. The wind howled through the stained glass windows, though none were broken. Father Thomas gathered everyone in the main hall to pray together, their hands shaking as they held rosaries. "Asti prajed." A deep, unfamiliar voice echoed through the church, not loud, not violent, but calm and mocking. "This house was never yours." The candles went out all at once. In the total darkness, something moved. When the lights returned, minutes later, nothing appeared damaged. No one was hurt, but carved deeply into the wooden altar was a single symbol, ancient, twisted, and unmistakably evil. Father Thomas stared at it, his face pale. He knew the church was no longer merely haunted. Something had awakened, and it was watching them all. Morning light struggled to enter the Church of Saint Augustine. The sun rose, yet the cold remained, clinging to the stone walls as if night had never truly left. None of the residents slept after what had happened at the altar. The carved symbol, jagged and burned deep into the wood, was now covered with a white cloth, but its presence was felt by everyone. Father Thomas ordered the church closed to the public. No prayers, no visitors. Only silence and whispered fear. He gathered the group in the main hall. Sister Maria sat with her hands clasped tightly, her knuckles white. Sister Agnes refused to sit near the altar. Mr. Elias stood near the door, his face lined with dread. "That symbol is not random," Father Thomas said quietly. "It is a mark of imprisonment." "Imprisonment for what?" Sister Agnes asked, her voice trembling. Father Thomas hesitated. "For something that was never meant to be released." The church records were kept in a narrow room behind the sacristy. Dust-covered shelves filled with ancient books, their pages yellow and fragile. Father Luke spent hours searching through them while the others waited in uneasy silence. Then he found it, a thin journal bound in cracked leather, dated over 100 years earlier. Its pages spoke of a ritual performed beneath the church emergency ceiling conducted by desperate priests. After a manifestation of extreme evil, the final entry ended abruptly. The ink smeared as if the writer's hand had been shaking. The entity was confined below. Father Luke read aloud, "May God forgive us if the seal is ever broken." Below. Everyone turned slowly toward the floor. Mr. Elias swallowed hard. "There's a basement," he said, "but it's sealed. Has been since before I arrived." No one spoke. The silence itself felt like a warning. The entrance was hidden beneath the church. Behind the altar, heavy wooden planks, reinforced with iron bars, blocked a narrow stairway descending into darkness. Dust and spiderweb suggested it had not been opened in decades. As Elias removed the boards, a wave of icy air surged upward, carrying with it the stench of damp earth and something older, something rotten. Sister Maria covered her mouth as her eyes filled with tears. "It doesn't want us there," she whispered. Despite every instinct telling them to stop, they descended. Each step creaked beneath their feet. Their lanterns flickered violently, casting distorted shadows along the stone walls. The deeper they went, the louder the scratching sound became, the same sound Sister Maria had heard beneath the floorboards days before. At the bottom of the stairs was a wide chamber carved directly into the earth. The walls were covered in religious symbols, many of them broken or inverted. Wooden crosses lay scattered across the floor, snapped cleanly in half. In the center of the room stood a stone structure shaped like a coffin, bound tightly with rusted chains and marked with the same symbol carved into the altar above. Sister Agnes fell to her knees. "Dear God." Father Thomas approached the structure slowly. His breath came out in clouds. He placed his hand on one of the chains. The chain snapped. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The lanterns went out instantly, plunging the room into total darkness. Something laughed soft, feminine, and cruel. Then came the whisper. "So many years," it said, "and you finally came back for me." The lanterns flickered back to life. The stone coffin remained sealed, but deep cracks had formed along its surface. Black liquid seeped from within, pooling onto the ground. Father Thomas stumbled backward, crossing himself frantically. "We must leave. Now." As they fled up the stairs, the walls began to bleed, dark streaks running down the stone like tears. The scratching sound turned into furious pounding, as if something inside the coffin was trying to break free. They sealed the basement once more, nailing the boards back in place with shaking hands. But the cold did not leave. That night, Sister Maria woke screaming. Carved into her bedroom wall was the same symbol, fresh, deep, and still dripping. And beneath it, written in blood, was a single word: Valak. The seal was broken, and the demon had begun to rise. No one spoke it aloud again after that night. Father Thomas ordered the symbol scrubbed from the walls, but no matter how hard they tried, faint traces always remained, like scars burned into the stone. Holy water evaporated the moment it touched the markings. Prayer brought no comfort, only exhaustion. Sister Maria was no longer the same. She sat quietly during morning prayer, her lips unmoving, her eyes fixed on nothing. Dark circles formed beneath her eyes, and she complained of hearing whispers even in daylight. At times she smiled without reason, a slow, unnatural curve of the lips that sent chills through anyone who saw it. Sister Agnes was the first to notice the voice. They were alone in the kitchen when Sister Maria suddenly spoke. "Do you hear them too?" she asked softly. Hear who? Sister Agnes replied. Sister Maria tilted her head, listening. The ones below, they are so impatient. Sister Agnes dropped the cup she was holding. It shattered on the floor. Below where? She asked, already afraid of the answer. Sister Maria turned to her. Her eyes looked darker somehow, as if light refused to enter them. Under us, she said. Under the church, where she sleeps. That night, the screams began. Sister Maria was found in the chapel, kneeling before the altar, her hands bleeding. Isatis her nails into the stone floor. She was praying, but not in Latin, not in any language Father Thomas recognized. Her voice shifted between tones, sometimes childlike, sometimes deep and guttural. Father Luke tried to pull her away. She turned her head sharply, her neck bending at an unnatural angle. Her mouth stretched into a wide grin. She sees you, Sister Maria said. Her voice no longer her own. She knows your sins. Father Luke staggered back as if struck. They carried Sister Maria to her room and locked the door, posting Elias outside as a guard. All through the night, the sounds continued: laughter, sobbing, scratching, and the constant murmuring of prayers spoken backward. At exactly 3:07 a.m., the bells rang again. This time, they did not stop. The walls shook violently. Candles burst into flame and then exploded. Windows cracked. From Sister Maria's room came a scream so loud it seemed to tear through the church itself. They broke the door down. Sister Maria was floating above the bed, her body twisted unnaturally, her back arched, her feet dangling inches above the mattress. Symbols were carved into her skin, deep and precise, as if done by an invisible blade. Blood ran down her arms and soaked the sheets. Her eyes snapped open, completely black. She welcomes me, the voice said from her mouth. She has opened the door. Father Thomas fell to his knees, clutching his rosary. In the name of God, I command you leave her. The entity laughed. This house remembers me, it said. Stone by stone, bone by bone, with a violent force. Sister Maria was thrown against the wall. She collapsed to the floor, unconscious. The room went silent. They rushed to her side. She was breathing barely. Father Thomas realized the truth then, his faith trembling for the first time in decades. This was not a haunting. It was an invasion. Over the next days, the church became a prison of fear. Sister Maria remained unconscious, her body cold to the touch. No doctor from the village would come near her after hearing where she lived. Animals outside the church began dying, birds falling from the sky. Their necks twisted, their eyes burned black. At night, Valak appeared, sometimes as a shadow moving across the walls, sometimes reflected briefly in mirrors, a tall figure dressed as a nun, her face pale and smiling. Wherever she appeared, the temperature dropped and faith weakened. Father Luke began doubting his prayers. Sister Agnes confessed she could no longer remember certain verses of scripture, as if something were erasing them from her mind. Elias refused to sleep, convinced that if he closed his eyes, he would never wake again. On the fourth night, Sister Maria awoke. She sat up calmly, her wounds healed without scars. She smiled sweetly at Father Thomas. I was chosen, she said gently. She needs a voice, a body, a way back. Her smile faded, and she is very close now. The candles blew out. From beneath the church came a deep, echoing crackstone breaking under unimaginable force. Valak had taken her first vessel, and the church would never be holy again. The moment Sister Maria uttered the truth, fear settled permanently within the walls of Saint Augustine's Church. No one slept that night. They gathered in the main hall, candles trembling in their hands, listening to the deep, distant sounds rising from beneath the floorstone, grinding against stone, as if something ancient was stretching after a long imprisonment. Father Thomas stood apart from the others, staring at the covered altar. His hands shook. He had spent his entire life believing that faith could shield any soul. Now, doubt pressed heavily on his chest. At dawn, he made a decision he had avoided 4 days. We must know what we are facing, he sighed firmly. Ignorance will destroy us faster than fear. They returned to the archive room. Father Luke pulled out the old journal again. along with several other forbidden textbooks sealed by the church long ago, marked "Do not read without authority." But authority meant little now. Survival mattered more. As they read, the air grew colder. The name appeared repeatedly across different texts, written by different hands, separated by centuries. Valak, a demon of deception, a corrupter of faith, one who wore the form of holiness to mock it. "She takes the shape of a nun," Sister Agnes whispered, her voice breaking, "to turn belief into terror." Father Luke read aloud from one passage. "Valak feeds on devotion. The stronger the faith, the sweeter the fall. Churches are not barriers to her, they are invitations." The candle flames flickered violently. A low hum filled the room, growing louder with every spoken word. Elias clutched his ears. "Stop reading," he begged. "She can hear us." But Father Thomas continued, driven by desperation. "She was sealed here," he said, "which means this place was chosen. Or cursed." Suddenly, the shelves began to shake. Books fell to the floor. The walls vibrated as if struck by an unseen force. From above, the church bells rang again, louder than ever, shaking dust from the ceiling. Sister Agnes screamed. A shadow formed behind Father Thomas, tall, slender, wearing a veil that moved, though there was no wind. Slowly, impossibly, it leaned close to his ear. "You remember me now," a soft voice whispered. Father Thomas spun around. The shadow vanished, but the temperature plunged instantly. Frost spread across the floor, crawling toward the altar like living veins. The name had been spoken too many times. Valak had been acknowledged. From that moment on, the church no longer obeyed reality. Hallways twisted, leading to places that should not exist. Doors opened to rooms that were not there before. Confession booths whispered secrets without anyone inside them. Sister Maria began walking the church at night. They found her standing in front of the altar, humming softly, her bare feet leaving no sound against the stone. Her eyes were calm to calm. "She listens when you say her name," Sister Maria said gently one evening. "It calls to her, like prayer." "Where is she?" Father Luke demanded. Sister Maria smiled. "Everywhere you believe, you are safe." That night, Father Thomas attempted a full, cleansing ritual. Holy incense filled the church as he read aloud from sacred scripture. The others joined him, their voices trembling but determined. At first, nothing happened. Then the altar cloth caught fire-black flames, rising without heat. The crucifix shattered, falling to the ground in pieces. From every corner of the church came whispering voices, overlapping, mocking, repeating prayers backward. Sister Maria screamed. She was lifted violently into the air once more, her body twisting as the voice of Valak poured from her mouth. "You sealed me with fear," Valak said, "and now you feed me with it." With a deafening crack, the floor beneath the altar split open, slightly just enough for a wave of freezing air to surge upward. From the darkness below came a sound like breathing. Something enormous was awakening. Father Thomas collapsed, coughing, his faith crumbling under the weight of what he had unleashed. He understood now the final truth written in the old journal, but never fully explained. Valak did not need to be summoned. She only needed to be remembered. As the candles went out one by one, Sister Maria's eyes locked onto Father Thomas. "She is no longer bound," she whispered. And beneath the church, the seal continued to break. Darkness fell too quickly that evening, as if the sun itself refused to linger near Saint Augustine's Church. Thick clouds smothered the sky, and the wind circled the building like a predator, howling through the cracks in the stone walls. Inside, the residents prepared for another night of terror, none of them believing they would survive many more. Father Thomas ordered everyone to stay together. No wandering, no prayers spoken alone. Fear had already fractured their faith. Isolation would finish the rest. But Valak did not need separation. The first scream came just after midnight. It echoed from the eastern hallway, sharp, raw, and filled with pure agony. Sister Agnes dropped her rosary and ran toward the sound before anyone could stop her. "Agnes, wait!" Father Luke shouted. They followed her down the corridor, candles flickering wildly. The walls seemed longer than before, the shadows stretching unnaturally along the floor. At the far end of the hall, a door stood open, the confessional room. Inside, They found nothing. No Sister Agnes. No sign of struggle. Only her rosary lay on the floor, its beads scattered and soaked in fresh blood. Then the door slammed shut behind them. The temperature dropped instantly. Frost crept up the walls. From the darkness, whispering voices began to chant soft at first, then louder, overlapping in dozens of twisted tones. "Faith is fragile," the voices murmured. "Faith breaks." The candles went out. In the pitch-black silence, something moved quickly past them. Elias cried out as unseen hands grabbed him, dragging him across the floor. Father Thomas reached blindly, catching Elias's sleeve just as the force yanked him away. The screams were deafening. When the candles were lit on their own moments later, Elias lay motionless near the altar, his eyes wide open, his mouth frozen in a silent scream. Around his neck hung Sister Agnes's rosary wrapped so tightly it had cut into his flesh. Sister Agnes was never found. Panic consumed the church. Doors slammed shut on their own, windows shattered inward. The bells rang without rhythm, now chaotic, violent, as if announcing the arrival of something unholy. Shadows ran across the walls, some tall, some crawling, none belonging to any human form. Sister Maria stood at the center of the main hall, perfectly calm. "She is walking freely now," she said softly. "She has tasted fear." Father Luke approached her cautiously, holding a crucifix out in front of him. "Fight her," he begged. "If any part of you is still there, fight." For a brief moment, Sister Maria's eyes filled with tears. Then she smiled. Valak appeared, not fully, only a shape, emerging from the darkness behind the altar. A tall figure dressed in a nun's habit, her face pale and cracked like old porcelain. Her eyes burned with hatred and amusement. Her smile was wide, unnatural, stretching far beyond what a human face could allow. She raised one long finger. Every door in the church slammed shut at once. "You built this place to cage me," Valak said calmly. "Now it is your tomb." The walls began to bleed again. Blood seeped from the cracks in the stone, dripping onto the floor like rain. The pews splintered. The altar cracked in half with a thunderous roar. Father Thomas fell to his knees, sobbing. "We are servants of God," he cried. "You have no power here." Valak tilted her head. "Then why do you scream?" Sister Maria was thrown violently against the ceiling, suspended like a broken doll. Symbols burned themselves into her skin once more, glowing faintly red. Father Luke grabbed holy water and threw it toward Valak. It froze in midair and shattered. Laughter filled the church. Deep, endless, cruel. One by one, the candles extinguished, plunging the church into total darkness once more. In the blackness, the screams returned, dozens of them, layered, echoing from every direction. Some were human, some were not. When dawn finally came, the church stood in ruin. Pews were overturned. Blood stained the floor. Elias was dead. Sister Agnes was gone. Father Luke sat in the corner, rocking back and forth, whispering prayers he no longer believed in. Sister Maria lay unconscious once more, her breathing shallow. Father Thomas stared at the broken altar and understood the terrible truth. Valak was no longer testing them. She was hunting, and the night of screams had only just begun. Daylight brought no relief. The sun rose weak and pale, casting long shadows across the shattered interior of Saint Augustine's Church. What had once been a place of worship now resembled a battlefield. Broken pews lay scattered like fallen bodies. Blood stains darkened the stone floor, refusing to dry. The air was thick with the scent of iron and cold ash. Father Thomas had not slept. He knelt near the altar's remains, staring at the crucifix broken in two at his feet. For the first time since his ordination, he could not bring himself to pray. Valak knew. That realization settled heavily in his chest. The demon was no longer attacking their bodies, it was tearing apart their belief, piece by piece. Father Luke had changed as well. Once confident and outspoken, he now avoided eye contact, his hands constantly shaking. He claimed to hear whispers whenever he opened the Bible, voices correcting him, mocking him, twisting holy words into threats. "She knows our weaknesses," he whispered to Father Thomas. "She speaks with our own voices. Sister Maria awoke just before noon. She sat up slowly, her expression calm, almost peaceful. The wounds on her skin were gone again, leaving behind no scars, only faint discolorations, shaped like ancient symbols. She showed me things, Sister Maria said quietly. Father Thomas approached cautiously. What things? Our sins, she replied. Not the ones we confess, but the ones we hide from ourselves. That afternoon, Valak began her true assault. The visions started without warning. Father Luke saw himself standing at the pulpit, delivering a sermon to an empty church. As he spoke, his words turned to ash in his mouth. When he looked down, his hands were stained with blood. Sister Agnes's blood. A voice whispered that her death was his fault, that he had led her into darkness with false hope. He collapsed, screaming, clawing at his own face. Sister Maria experienced something worse. She saw her childhood home burning, heard her mother begging her not to leave for the convent. The vision twisted her mother's face, became Valak's, smiling lovingly. You abandoned them, the demon whispered, just as you abandoned yourself. Sister Maria fell to her knees, sobbing. Father Thomas tried to resist, clinging to his faith like a lifeline. But Valak knew him. Best of all, that night, she appeared to him alone. He was in the confessional, though he did not remember walking there. Candles flickered weakly across from him. Behind the wooden screen, someone breathed softly. Bless me, Father, a familiar voice said, for I have sinned. His blood ran cold. It was his own voice. The screen slid open slowly. On the other side sat Valak, wearing the face of a younger version of him, eyes full of fear, doubt, and ambition. You wanted power, she said gently. You wanted respect, and you built this church on secrets. The walls around him dissolved into visions of the past, documents signed, warnings ignored, reports buried. He remembered now. The land beneath the church had been condemned once, marked as cursed, but he had allowed construction to continue, trusting ritual over truth. People had died. You sealed me here, Valak whispered. Not to protect them, but to protect your legacy. Father Thomas screamed as the vision shattered. When he was found, he lay on the floor, shaking violently, blood seeping from his ears. The attacks intensified. The church echoed with cries, laughter, and whispered confessions that no one had spoken aloud. Mirrors reflected not faces, but sin's betrayals, lies, moments of weakness, magnified and distorted. Faith crumbled. Father Luke dropped his rosary into the fire, watching it burn without reaction. She's right, he murmured. We're already damned. Only one thing seemed clear. Valak was feeding on guilt, on doubt, on broken belief. Sister Maria stood in the center of the ruined church that night, her voice steady. She doesn't need to kill us, she said. If we lose our faith, she wins. Father Thomas looked up at her, tears in his eyes. Then what hope do we have left? Sister Maria closed her eyes. The same hope she fears, she whispered. Truth. From beneath the church came another deep crackle, louder than before. The seal was failing, and with every doubt planted in their minds, Valak grew stronger. The sound of cracking stone echoed through Saint Augustine's Church long after it had stopped. It lingered in the air, like a warning that could no longer be ignored. The seal beneath them was weakening, and everyone knew it, even without Valak's whispers. The truth was impossible to escape. The church was dying. Father Thomas ordered a mass at dawn, the first since the nightmare began. It was an act of defiance, a desperate attempt to reclaim what little holiness remained within the walls. The survivors gathered near the altar. Father Thomas, Father Luke, Sister Maria, and 2 junior caretakers who had refused to flee. Their faces were pale, their eyes hollow. The bell rang once, then twice. On the third ring, the cross above the altar cracked. A sharp splitting sound cut through the silence as the wooden crucifix fractured down the center. The figure of Christ broke away and fell to the floor, shattering into pieces. At the same time, The holy water basin began to boil, the clear liquid turning thick and black like oil. Sister Maria screamed. The church doors slammed shut. The windows darkened as if covered from the outside. The candles burned low, their flames flickering in unnatural shades of blue and violet. Valak had arrived. She emerged slowly from the shadows behind the altar, her form clearer than ever before. The nun's habit flowed unnaturally, untouched by gravity. Her face was pale and cracked, her eyes glowing with cold intelligence. She smiled not in anger, but in triumph. "You still pretend this place belongs to God," Valak said softly, "but it has always belonged to me." Father Thomas raised his shaking hands. "This is holy ground." Valak laughed. The sound reverberated through the church, causing the walls to tremble. "Holy," she echoed. "You built this church on a wound. You sealed me with lies, and now the truth is bleeding through." The floor beneath the altar split wider. A burst of freezing air surged upward, carrying the stench of decay and sulfur. From the crack, faint whispers escaped, voices layered and distorted, repeating prayers and mockery. Father Luke stepped forward, clutching a broken piece of the crucifix. "Leave this place," he commanded. "In God's name." Valak turned her gaze toward him. Instantly, he froze. His eyes widened in terror as visions flooded his mind, his doubts, his buried resentment, the moments he questioned his calling. He dropped the cross, falling to his knees. "Your faith was never strong," Valak said calmly. "It was borrowed." The crucifix piece crumbled to dust. Sister Maria stood trembling but unbroken. She stepped closer to Valak, her voice firm despite the fear burning in her chest. "Use faith to destroy faith," she said. "But that means you need it." Valak's smile faded just slightly. "You are learning," the demon replied. With a violent gesture, Valak raised her hand. Every cross in the church shattered at once. Wood splintered, metal twisted, and stone cracked. Symbols of protection fell uselessly to the floor. The church let out a sound like a dying animal. The caretakers screamed as invisible forces lifted them into the air and slammed them against the walls. One fell lifeless to the ground. The other crawled away, sobbing, leaving a trail of blood behind him. Father Thomas collapsed beside the altar, clutching his chest. The weight of guilt and failure crushed him. "I tried to protect them," he whispered. Valak knelt before him, her face inches from his. "No," she said gently. "You tried to protect yourself." She reached toward the crack in the floor. The ground trembled violently. The chains around the sealed stone coffin beneath the church snapped one by one, their echoes rising like thunder. A deep, ancient roar answered from below. Valak stood, spreading her arms. "My body stirs," she said. "Soon, I will walk freely again." Sister Maria watched in horror as the church began to collapse inward, walls bleeding, floors splitting. Yet amid the chaos, something else became clear. Valak was no longer hiding. She was preparing to rise, and the broken cross at their feet was no longer a symbol of protection, it was a warning. The final seal was breaking, and the church would not survive what came next. By the time night returned, Saint Augustine's Church was barely standing. Cracks ran through the walls like veins. The air vibrated with low, constant murmurs rising from beneath the floor, as if the earth itself were whispering blasphemy. Father Thomas lay unconscious near the ruined altar, his breathing shallow. Father Luke sat beside him, hollow-eyed, clutching a Bible he no longer opened. Sister Maria was the one who made the decision. "We cannot face her alone," she said, her voice steady despite the terror surrounding them. "This is beyond us, beyond this church. There is no one left," Father Luke murmured. "No priest will come here now." "There is one," she replied. She led them to the archives once more, her steps certain. From a locked drawer beneath the shelves, she removed a document wrapped in brittle parchment. It was not listed in the records, not indexed or catalogued. Father Thomas had hidden it. The name written across the top made Father Luke's breath catch. Father Benedict Halle. He performed the original sealing, Sister Maria said. He survived Valak, and he was excommunicated. Father Luke added softly. The document told a story of forbidden rites, of methods the church refused to acknowledge. Benedict Halle had succeeded in imprisoning Valak, but at a terrible cost. He had violated sacred laws to do it. He lives, Sister Maria said. Or lived, in the mountains beyond the village. Despite the danger, they left the church before midnight, carrying Father Thomas between them. The doors opened willingly as if Valak wanted them to go. The village was silent. No lights. No animals. Even the wind had died. They found Father Benedict's cabin deep in the forest, half-rotten and overgrown with vines. A single candle burned inside. He was older than any photograph suggested. His back was bent, his eyes clouded. But when he saw them, recognition flashed across his face. "She has awakened," he said before they spoke. They brought him to the church. The moment Father Benedict crossed the threshold, he staggered, clutching his chest. "She remembers me," he gasped, "and she hates me." In the ruined basement, before the cracked stone coffin, Father Benedict told them the truth. "Valak cannot be destroyed," he said. "Only bound, and binding her requires balance." "What kind of balance?" Father Luke asked. "A soul for a soul," Benedict replied. "The seal feeds on sacrifice, not blood alone but willing surrender." Sister Maria understood immediately. Father Thomas groaned, regaining consciousness. "No," he whispered, "not again." Father Benedict continued, his voice heavy with guilt. "Last time, I used a condemned man. It worked, but the seal weakened over time. This time, it must be someone pure of intent." Valak's laughter echoed through the basement. "You hear him," she said from everywhere and nowhere, "always trading lives like currency." The chains around the coffin rattled violently. Father Luke clenched his fists. "There must be another way." "There isn't," Benedict said. "Not if you want her stopped." The demon manifested briefly, her shadow dancing across the walls. "Choose carefully," Valak whispered. "I enjoy watching faith turn on itself." Sister Maria stepped forward. "I will do it," she said. Father Thomas screamed her name. "No, she has already used you." Sister Maria shook her head. "She took my body, but not my will, and she fears choice." Valak's smile vanished. The church shook violently, dust raining from the ceiling. For the first time, the demon screamed not in rage, but in denial. Father Benedict stared at Sister Maria, tears in his eyes. "You know what this means?" "Yes," she replied softly. "It means she cannot win." The old exorcist began preparing the ritual, his hands trembling. Symbols were drawn in salt and ash. Candles were placed around the coffin. The final seal would begin at dawn. Above them, the church groaned as if alive. Valak's time was running out, and so was theirs. A gray light seeped weakly through the shattered stained glass windows, casting distorted colors across the ruined church floor. The air felt heavy, pressing down on every breath, as if the building itself were resisting what was about to happen. Sister Maria stood at the center of the basement chamber, surrounded by the symbols Father Benedict had drawn during the night. Ash, salt, and dried blood formed a circular seal around the cracked stone coffin. The chains rattled constantly now, trembling like living things. Valak was furious. Her presence filled the church, even when she did not appear. The walls whispered. The floor pulsed faintly beneath her feet. Every heartbeat felt amplified, echoing through the stone. Father Thomas watched Sister Maria with hollow eyes. "She's manipulating this," he said weakly. "She wants us to choose. And that is exactly why we must," Father Benedict replied. "Demons thrive on force and fear. They break when faced with willing sacrifice." Father Luke stood apart, his hands clenched so tightly his nails cut into his palms. He had not spoken since dawn. Doubt churned violently inside him, and Valak knew it. She came for him first. The lights flickered. The basement walls dissolved into another place, an empty village road at night. Father Luke stood alone, hearing footsteps behind him. Sister Agnes appeared. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow, her neck bruised purple where the rosary had tightened. "You let me die," she whispered. "I tried to save you," Father Luke sobbed. "You chose prayer instead of action," she replied coldly, "and now you choose her instead of yourself." The vision shattered. Father Luke fell to his knees, screaming. Valak's voice echoed triumphantly. "Look how easy it is," she said. "Faith fractures so beautifully." The demon began marking the church. One by one, black symbols burned themselves into the walls, glowing faintly red. Each mark pulsed in rhythm with the coffin beneath the floor. The temperature dropped sharply, frost creeping across the stones. Father Benedict shouted for them to hurry. Once she completes the markings, the ritual will fail. Sister Maria stepped closer to the coffin. With every step, the whispers grew louder, pleading, threatening, mocking. "You were never special," Valak whispered directly into her mind. "Just empty. That's why I chose you." Sister Maria closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You chose me because you needed me," she replied. "And need is weakness," Valak screamed. The chains snapped violently, one after another, flying across the room like whips. The stone coffin split open further, revealing darkness so deep it seemed to swallow light itself. A massive claw pressed against the opening from within. Father Thomas cried out, "It's too late." "No," Sister Maria said. "It's exactly time." She turned to Father Benedict. "Begin." The old exorcist hesitated. His hands shook violently. "Once started, there is no stopping it." "I know." Father Luke staggered to his feet. "Wait," he said hoarsely. "Let me do it." Everyone turned toward him. Valak laughed softly. "Yes," she purred. "Let him. He already belongs to me." Father Luke looked at Sister Maria. "She's right. I doubt. I fear. I break." Sister Maria shook her head. "And that's why." "It can't be you. This must be a choice without corruption." Valak's smile vanished completely. For the first time, genuine panic rippled through her voice. "You don't understand what you're giving up." Sister Maria stepped into the circle. The symbols ignited in blinding white light. The whispers turned into screams, furious, desperate, enraged. The coffin shook violently as Valak's shadow thrashed against the seal. Father Benedict began chanting the ancient words, his voice cracking with age and grief. The ritual words tore through the air like blades. Sister Maria screamed as invisible forces clawed at her, lifting her slightly off the ground. Blood streamed from her nose and ears, but her eyes remained fixed on the coffin. "I choose," she cried. "I choose to end this," Valak shrieked in rage. "You think death frightens me?" The demon roared. We'll wait. I always wait." The claw retreated as the coffin began sealing itself, stone grinding violently against stone. Chains were formed, glowing white-hot as they wrapped around the structure once more. Sister Maria collapsed. Father Thomas caught her just before she hit the floor. She looked up at him, her eyes clear, peaceful. "Don't let her be forgotten," she whispered. "That's how she returns." Her breath stopped. The chamber fell silent. The coffin was sealed again, but at a terrible cost. Valak's presence faded, retreating into the depths beneath the church. But even in the silence, one truth remained undeniable. Evil had been bound, not destroyed, and it would remember the name of the one who defied it. The silence after Sister Maria's death was worse than the screams. It pressed down on Saint Augustine's Church like a suffocating weight, heavy and unnatural. No whispers echoed from the walls. No shadows moved. Even the cold seemed to hesitate, as if the building itself were holding its breath. Father Thomas cradled Sister Maria's lifeless body on the basement floor. Her face was peaceful, untouched by fear, as though she had fallen asleep mid. That peace broke him more than any horror Valak had unleashed. "She saved us," he whispered. Father Benedict closed the stone coffin for the final time, sealing the last glowing symbols with trembling hands. The chains cooled, turning dull and lifeless. He stepped back, his strength finally gone, and sank against the wall. For now, the old exorcist said quietly. She saved you, for now. They carried Sister Maria upstairs and laid her before the broken altar. Dawn light filtered weakly through the shattered stained glass, illuminating her still form in fractured colors: reds, blues, and purples like wounds made of light. Father Luke stood apart, staring at his hands. She chose what I couldn't, he murmured, and Valak knows it. As if summoned by her name, the church groaned. The walls shuddered violently. Cracks split open along the ceiling, spreading outward like spiders. The doors slammed shut on their own, locking with deafening finality. The air grew thick, burning their lungs with every breath. Father Benedict's eyes widened in horror. No, this shouldn't be happening. Valak's laughter echoed through the church, not loud, not furious, but amused. You sealed my body, her voice whispered from every corner, but you stand inside my memory. The floor warped beneath their feet. The pews twisted and stretched, melting into jagged shapes. Hallways lengthened into endless corridors. Doors opened into darkness instead of rooms. The church was no longer obeying the laws of the living world. They were trapped. Father Thomas lifted the broken crucifix from the floor, gripping it tightly. This place is still sacred, he said, though doubt trembled in his voice. Valak appeared before the altar, clearer than ever, her nun's habit pristine, her cracked porcelain face glowing faintly in the twisted light. Sister Maria believed, Valak said softly. That is why she hurt me. She stepped closer, her feet never touching the ground, but belief leaves scars. The walls bled again. Blood dripped from the ceiling, pooling around their feet. From within the walls came muffled screams, familiar voices. Elias, Sister Agnes, others, long buried beneath the church's history. Father Luke fell to his knees, clutching his head. Make it stop. Valak turned to him. You could have, she whispered, if you had chosen. The floor beneath Father Luke cracked open, revealing a vision of the basement coffin. He saw himself chained inside it, screaming as the seal closed. He screamed in return, scrambling backward. Father Benedict shouted over the chaos. She's using the church itself. It's a manifestation. If it collapses, the seal collapses with it. Then how do we stop it? Father Thomas demanded. The old exorcist's voice broke. You don't fight her here. You endure. Valak raised her hands. The church screamed. Stone columns cracked and fell. The ceiling caved in partially, crashing down inches from Sister Maria's body but never touching her, as if even Valak could not defile her sacrifice. You see, Valak said, her voice suddenly sharp. This house remembers me. It was born in my shadow. Father Thomas stood between Valak and Sister Maria's body, spreading his arms. You will not touch her. Valak paused, studying him. For the first time, she looked curious. Faith, born of guilt, she murmured. Perhaps you are not entirely hollow. With a violent wave of her hand, she vanished. The church continued to collapse around them. Walls cracked open, revealing endless darkness beyond. The exit doors reappeared suddenly at the far end of the hall, flickering, unstable, like a mirage. Father Benedict pointed. That's your only chance. Once you leave, this place will seal itself. And you? Father Thomas asked. The old man smiled sadly. I belong to this sin. Before anyone could stop him, Father Benedict turned and walked back toward the altar, disappearing into the collapsing shadows. Father Luke grabbed Sister Maria's rosary, his hands shaking. We can't let her sacrifice be meaningless. They ran. As they crossed the threshold, the church let out one final, deafening roar. The doors slammed shut behind them, stone ceiling over stone. The ground trembled violently, then stopped. Saint Augustine Church stood silent once more, but deep beneath the ruins, something ancient and patient smiled. Valak was sealed again, and hell had learned the shape of holy walls. Saint Augustine's Church no longer existed as it once had. From the outside, it stood intact, weathered, silent, and empty, but inside, reality had folded in on itself. Father Thomas and Father Luke stood in the courtyard at dawn, staring at the sealed doors. No crack, no mark, no sign of the destruction they had escaped. It was as if the church had swallowed its own wounds and buried them. Father Luke broke the silence. If Valak is sealed, why does it still feel unfinished? Because it was. That night, the dreams returned. Father Thomas saw the basement again, the coffin wrapped in chains, glowing faintly beneath the earth. But this time Sister Maria stood beside it. Her expression calm yet sorrowful. "You must finish what we started," she said, when he reached out to her. The vision shattered into darkness and Valak's voice whispered softly, "You never sealed the door, only the lock." Father Thomas woke screaming. By morning, they knew what had to be done. The ritual had been interrupted. Father Benedict had stayed behind, anchoring the collapse of the church, but his sacrifice had stabilized the seal, not completed it. Valak was contained, but not silenced. Given time, she would erode the prison again, feeding on memory, fear, and neglect. "We must return," Father Thomas said. Father Luke stared at him in disbelief. "There is nothing left in there but death." "There is one thing left," Father Thomas replied. "Responsibility." They were not alone this time. Father Thomas contacted the diocese, not for permission, but for confession. The truth he had buried for decades was laid bare. The cursed land, the ignored warnings, the desperate sealing. The church could no longer deny it. 3 days later, they returned with sacred relics, sealed texts, and the last remaining rite, the rite of unnaming. Father Luke read from the ancient manuscript as they prepared the ritual outside the church doors. "Evil bound by memory may only be weakened by erasure," he said. "To unname a demon is to starve it. But Valak feeds on being remembered," Father Thomas said. "On fear? Then we deny her both." As night fell, the doors opened willingly. Inside, the church was empty, no blood, no ruins, only silence. But beneath that silence, something watched. They descended into the basement one final time. The coffin lay where it always had, chains and tax symbols, faint but holding. The air vibrated with restrained rage. Valak spoke immediately. "You return like lambs," she purred. "Do you think sacrifice made you brave?" Father Thomas stepped forward. "It made us honest." The ritual began. The relics were placed at each cardinal point. Holy fire burned low and steady. Father Luke read the forbidden words. Not prayers, but declarations. "You are not welcome. You are not remembered. You are not named." The chains rattled violently. Valak screamed not in fury, but in fear. "You cannot erase me," she roared. "I am written into your faith." Father Thomas lifted Sister Maria's rosary, the last thing she had touched. "You are written into our failure," he said, "and we repent." The final step remained, to complete the rite of unnaming. One truth had to be spoken aloud, the sin that had allowed Valak to enter in the first place. Father Thomas knelt before the coffin. "I built this church, knowing the land was cursed," he confessed. "I chose legacy over lives. I invited you." The symbols ignited in blinding white light. Valak's screams tore through the basement as the chains tightened, sinking into the stone. Her form flickered wildly, destabilizing. "You need me," she shrieked, without fear. "Your faith is empty." "No," Father Luke said firmly. "Without truth, it is." With the final words spoken, the name Valak burned away from the symbols, dissolving into ash. The coffin sank slowly into the earth, sealed not by force but by forgetting. The basement collapsed inward, burying the prison far below memory itself. When they emerged, the church doors sealed behind them, this time permanently. There were no whispers, no cold, no shadows, only silence. True silence. Father Thomas looked up at the sky, tears streaming down his face. "It's finished," he whispered. But as they walked away, far beneath the ground, something stirred, weak, diminished, yet alive. Evil had been silenced, not destroyed, and silence, too, has a way of breaking. Life slowly returned to the village surrounding Saint Augustine's Church. Birds sang again. The wind moved gently through the trees. Farmers spoke in normal tones, no longer whispering prayers at dusk. To the outside world, the terror had ended, but salvation always leaves a debt. Father Thomas felt it every morning when he woke and ached deep in his chest, as if something essential had been carved out and never replaced. The church was sealed and condemned, its doors marked with official warnings. No one was allowed inside. The diocese declared the incident a structural failure. Nothing more. They buried the truth. Father Luke remained by Father Thomas's side, but he was no longer the same man. His faith had returned, but it was quieter now, stripped of certainty, rooted in humility. He no longer spoke of miracles. He spoke of responsibility. Sister Maria was buried on a hill overlooking the village. Her grave was simple, no grand monument, just her name carved cleanly into stone. Every evening, Father Thomas visited her resting place, kneeling until his legs trembled. "She saved us," he whispered one night, "and we walk freely because of it." But beneath the earth, beneath stone and forgotten symbols, Valak waited. She was weak, starved of fear, denied her name, bound by ritual and confession. The rite of unnamen had torn something essential from her existence. She could no longer reach out as she once had, but demons are patient. Valak learned something in her imprisonment. Faith could rebuild. Memory could fade, and time always created cracks. The price of salvation had not yet been fully paid. One night, Father Thomas dreamed of the church again. It stood whole and beautiful, bathed in golden light. Bells rang softly. The doors opened in welcome. Inside, the pews were filled not with worshippers, but with those who had died. Elia's sister Agnes, Father Benedict. They sat silently, their faces calm. At the altar stood Sister Maria. "You must let go," she said gently. Before he could respond, the church darkened. The golden light bled away, replaced by shadows. Sister Maria's face twisted not into Valak's, but into something empty. "You sealed her," a voice whispered, "but you bound yourself." Father Thomas woke with tears on his face. That morning, he made his decision. He summoned Father Luke and spoke with clarity he had not felt since before the terror began. "The seal holds," he said, "but it is anchored to guilt, to me." Father Luke shook his head. "You confessed. You repented. That should be enough." "For God, maybe," Father Thomas replied softly, "but not for what lies beneath that church." The truth was cruel and unavoidable. The ritual had required balance. Sister Maria had given her life willingly. Father Benedict had given his existence to stabilize the collapse, and Father Thomas, the man who had invited Valak in the first place, still lived. The imbalance remained. He returned to Saint Augustine's Church alone at dusk. The warnings were still posted. The doors were sealed with iron and stone, yet they opened effortlessly at his touch. Inside, the air was still. He descended into the darkness without fear. The collapsed basement lay quiet, but Father Thomas felt the pool immediate presence, faint but aware. "I'm here," he said aloud. The earth trembled slightly. "You come to kneel?" Valak's weakened voice whispered from deep below. "Or to beg?" Father Thomas stood firm. "I came to finish paying the debt." Silence followed, then laughter, thin, broken, but unmistakably hers. "You cannot kill me," Valak said. "I know," Father Thomas replied, "but I can bind you to me." He began the final prayer, not of sealing, not of banishment, but of offering. He offered his faith, his life, his memory, not in fear, but in responsibility. The ground cracked beneath his feet, glowing faintly as ancient symbols responded. Valak screamed. "No," she hissed. "If you stay, I starve." "That is the point," Father Thomas said calmly. The church sealed itself once more. From the outside, the doors closed forever, stone merging seamlessly. The structure slowly collapsed inward, not violently, but gently, as if sinking into sleep. Father Thomas was never seen again. The diocese declared him missing. Years later, children would say the hill felt peaceful, but the ground near the old church was always warm like a heartbeat beneath the soil. Valak remained, bound not by chains, but by a man who chose to stand watch for eternity. Salvation had been achieved, and its price was a soul that refused to leave. Years passed, and time softened the memory of Saint Augustine's Church. The ruins were eventually cleared, the land fenced off and declared unsafe. Grass grew where stone once stood. Trees reclaimed the hill, their roots sinking deep into soil that carried secrets no one wished to remember. The village rebuilt itself slowly, carefully, as if afraid to disturb something beneath the earth. People spoke of the past, less and less, and that was exactly how Valak survived. Father Luke became the last living witness to the truth. He left the village not long after Father Thomas disappeared, carrying the weight of memory like a burden carved into his bones. He wrote everything down, every ritual, every failure, every sacrifice in a private journal never submitted to the church. Some truths, he believed, were too dangerous to institutionalize. At night, even years later, he dreamed of the hill. He dreamed of warmth beneath the soil, of a heartbeat that did not belong to the living, of a voice that no longer screamed but waited, far beneath the roots and stone. Valak endured. She was no longer whole, no longer powerful. The rite of unnaming had stripped her of form, of clarity, of identity. But demons did not require strength to exist, only persistence, and memory always returned. It began subtly. A local child claimed to hear bells ringing at night, though no church stood on the hill anymore. A shepherd reported his sheep refusing to graze near the fenced land, bleating in terror and nothing visible. Travelers passing through the village felt sudden waves of dread when they looked toward the trees, as if being watched by something ancient and patient. The villagers dismissed it as superstition. They always did. One evening, long after Father Luke had grown old, a group of surveyors arrived. The land, they said, had value. The soil was strong. The location, perfect for rebuilding. A chapel, perhaps. The fence was removed. The first night construction equipment stood on the hill. The ground trembled faintly, just enough to be mistaken for settling earth. Deep below, something stirred, drawn not by prayer or fear, but by attention, by remembrance. Valak felt Italiano. She could not speak her name anymore. It burned her to try, but names were only one way to exist. Symbols, echoes, shapes of belief, these remained. She pressed against the presence bound to her. Father Thomas, he was no longer a man, not fully. He was will, vigilance, a living lock. His consciousness stretched thin across years of isolation, but he did not break. Not yet. You are fading, Valak whispered without words, and I am eternal. He answered her not with prayer, but with resolve. The chapel walls began rising above them. On the third night, one of the workers found a symbol carved into the foundation stone, a twisted mark, ancient and unsettling. No one could explain how it got there. They removed the stone. That was the first mistake. The air grew colder. Nightmares spread through the village. A woman claimed to see a nun standing among the trees, smiling softly before vanishing into mist. The name was never spoken, but it didn't need to be. Valak was no longer sealed by ignorance. She was being remembered not as a demon, not as a warning, but as a story, a rumor, a curiosity. And stories. Outdoors, deep beneath the hill, the warmth intensified. The heartbeat grew stronger. Father Thomas felt the strain at last. He stood in the darkness of his eternal watch, feeling the cracks form not in stone, but in time. He knew the truth Sister Maria had spoken long ago. Evil does not sleep, it waits. And waiting, given enough years, always finds weakness. Above the hill, the chapel bells were installed. Te rang once to test their sound. Far below, something answered. A faint vibration. A whisper of laughter. A smile forming where none should exist. The villagers would later say the bells sounded wrong that night. Too cold. too hollow. But by morning, construction continued. The final seal had not broken, not yet. But Valak no longer needed to rise in fire and screams. She had learned patience. She had learned faith. And somewhere beneath holy ground, bound to a soul that could one day falter, evil waited quiet, unseen, and smiling. Because no matter how many times darkness is sealed, evil never sleeps.